What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and on the show right now is Tampa radio veteran Fisher. He is on the show. What's up, dude?
Thank you very much for having me.
It's very weird. So I'm from the Midwest, so I knew about The Bone because I was a big fan of Calta 7 years ago. So I listened to The Bone, and I remember one night I came home from hanging out with my friends, and I was drunk. And I was laying in bed, and I was like, hey, let's just see what The Bone's airing. This is like 6 years ago. And one of the first shows I heard was you. So it's very weird, like 6 years after that we're doing the show.
Yeah, that was a little 6-month stint back in 2013. And that was after 11 years here at 97X.
Wasn't it weird? Because I used to do overnights. So I know what it's like when you work late at night. For you, was it hard to do the show? Because dude, when you work overnights, not nights, but when you work overnights, it's so bad on your sleep. Like, it wears you out during the day.
Yeah, it was only 6 months. Before that, you're still getting up at 3:30 in the morning or sometime between 3:30 and 4:30. And I don't think I ever really got used to it, only because I wasn't disciplined. Now that I'm a little bit older, I'm a little bit more disciplined. But I think in order, whether you're doing overnights or getting up at 3:30 in the morning, you need to have a certain routine one way or another, and I definitely was not a routine guy.
What are some things you've learned through the last 6 years since you did the show?
I've learned a lot. Kind of taking a step away from radio. It was a chance to pull my head out of my ass, and I mean that kind of in a way. Are you familiar with that picture that like that guy? He's in an office. He's got like slacks on and a white button-up shirt, and he's bending over, and his head goes all the way between his legs and goes right up his ass, right? Yeah. And that's the picture.
Yeah.
Well, I think after so many years of being in the media for me, being in radio and having a morning show and getting just hyper-focused on what you're doing and only what you're doing every day, that was me. I had my head up my own rear end. And so it was awesome because I got a chance to take a step back, watch radio, also during a very interesting time with technology, because now radio is competing with what? Apps and your podcasts and stuff like that. So instead of being in the mix during all that tumultuous time, I was on the outside watching what they were doing at the same time, trying to figure out podcasting and live streaming and digital marketing and all that stuff on my end. And so I've learned a lot. I feel like the first 25 years of my career, I learned half of what I know. In the last 6 years, I've learned the other half.
Well, I think the biggest thing is like, it feels like things really changed around like 2012, 2013 when the phones began really taking over.
Yep.
Like once you were able to do like Facebook Live 4 years ago, I feel like that was like the game changer where you can just go live at any time and you don't have to be on a video site to go live. To me, that was when things just went to a different world.
Well, yeah, and you have access to so much more where, up until recently, radio, television, they were like centers. You had a few radio stations, you had 10 to 20 radio or whatever, 20 radio stations in every market. You had a handful of television stations, and that was the funnel that everything had to go through. But now there's almost an infinite amount of channels and people just putting out content and videotaping things, and it's intriguing.
So I think it's real good that there's a ton of shows out there when it comes to like listening to a radio show or listening to an internet show or even watching Amazon Prime. I think everything is great that we have so much out there. But at the same time, I feel like there's too much out there. I feel like every week I'm hearing about a new radio show to listen to online or a new show to watch on Amazon Prime. Dude, it just feels like it's becoming too big. Like there's just too much out there.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the way it goes. Every time there's something new, a new industry, everybody comes jumping into the water. Everybody has their own ideas. And then after a while, basically, it's almost kind of like an asteroid hitting a planet, right?
Yeah.
The asteroid hits the planet, and at first, like, shit's everywhere. But then everything starts to settle, and you have a, clearer picture of how things are going to lay out. Just like the end of the 90s with the tech boom, right? With, Google and Yahoo. Everybody was jumping in at the end of the 90s. There was an internet site for everything. And then they slowly kind of coalesced into, something.
Have you seen the Jeff Bezos interview from like maybe 25, 23 years ago where he's being interviewed by this really pompous guy? It's like a 40-minute interview, and it begins and it shows his office, and it just says Amazon like on the wall, and it shows his crappy car. And I love the pompous guy that's interviewing him is saying, "Oh, you don't have the nice things." Like he's saying it in a way, and he was like, "Don't you need to have great things? Do you think people are going to want to buy things and have to wait for it to come in the mail, blah, blah, blah?" And it's just so weird. That guy might be worth 90,000, and Jeff Bezos just proved us all wrong.
Right. No.
It's crazy.
Those are the times we're living in. Well, let me ask you something. Tell me about because here's something interesting about podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a voice now because everybody's asking people like you and me, how do I get into podcasting? And then, of course, how do I make money from podcasting? But podcasting can be used for different things. And I think it's great that there are 1 million podcasts out there, and there's about to be 2 million and 3 million and 4 million. Because for anybody and everybody who's ever wanted to be on the radio, who feels like they have something to say, has a forum now. There's no excuses. Just you hit record and go.
Yes and no. Here's the thing. I am not threatened by anybody. I used to, but I'm really working on just trying to be more humble so I don't view anybody as a threat, because if a person takes my slot, it wasn't meant to be. But there is this thing, dude, where there's almost too many shows because there's so many shows that are good, but they don't get as many listeners because these really bad shows with bad mics and bad sound, it kind of like clutters the market. Like, it's great that they're doing a show, but at the same time, it makes shows that are good not be found. Because
I think you're looking at it from a capitalistic standpoint, like a business standpoint. And you're right.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it from looking at how everything has changed over the last 25 years.
that's true.
And how the world's being connected, how there's, information is zipping across lines, across the oceans like that. And now here's something where no matter who you are, where you are, you can hit record, say what you want to say, and whether you're trying to entertain somebody or you've got a message to tell the world, and then upload it, and boom, there it is. Maybe nobody ever does listen to it, but you still got a chance to say it and put it out in the universe.
Here's what I want to know. What if you were getting into radio now? How would it be different for you?
Well, obviously a hyper focus on social media. It's a completely different ball game. As a matter of fact, I know it's starting to happen here and there. What's his face? The old MTV VJ, Carson Daly just got replaced by a social media star, right? I have a feeling we're going to start seeing more and more of that, where instead of just hiring a guy that knows has a voice like this and can talk up records, go find somebody that has 50,000, 100,000 followers in your area and see if you can train them up, just to be a personality on your radio station.
I try to be hip. Right now I'm 25, and I feel like I'm at the age where I just can't relate to things that are big now. Like, there's this guy named Shane Dawson, and he's in the news every day, and I don't know who he is. And that was when I felt old, is when for the first time I saw a person in the news that's like maybe 18 years old, and I go, who?
Well, I did that this past week. And do you follow baseball?
Yeah, a little bit.
So somebody just signed the biggest sports contract of all time. I'm, watching
Mike Trout.
Yeah, I'm watching the ticker, and I did the same thing. I went, who? And I was, oh man, I am out of touch. I used to wake up every day and open up the newspaper and look at the box scores to see how Dale Murphy and the Atlanta Braves did, the night before.
Here's the one that's weird is when you watch March Madness, and it's just weird how they're 18 and they're better at a thing that you were never good at all.
Yeah.
At all. Like, you're watching these guys that are in better shape, and they're like 7 years younger if it's me, or more years if it's you, and you're like, man, they were blessed with a thing I never had.
That's like when that term was it men amongst boys. When you see that, and they're the supreme athletes among all of us, and so they're off doing athletic things. All right, I have 2 questions for you.
What's up?
I was listening to the Anthony interview.
Thank you.
When was that recorded?
Like 2 years ago?
Oh, that's 2 years ago. So that's the one from your website, because I went to go download your app.
Thank you.
But I couldn't. Like, I go into my little podcast thing.
And what happened?
Well, it was not even there. I type in Hoppe Hour.
Did you type Hoppe? This is so annoying. 5 years ago, I used to do my show up north, and I called it Hoppe Radio, and they won't let me change the app name, so it's Hoppe Radio. It's so annoying. It's because I did like 3 different shows, so I wanted to do my own like main thing, and it just did not work because I can't change it. It's so annoying. I'm like, it's Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Radio, Google Play.
It doesn't, like, because I'm pulling it up and trying to pull it up on my iPhone here.
That's weird. Oh, you got to scroll more to the right. It's so there
you are.
Insulting.
Oh, because those other
main
ones
show doesn't show.
Right, because they paid for it. All right, now I'm subscribing.
Do you think that's what it is? That they paid for it?
Yep. That's exactly what it is. I think anyway. So my first question is this: listening to that interview was one of the most compelling interviews I've ever listened to.
Yeah.
From a standpoint that of a hyper fan getting a chance to interview one of the guys he grew up listening to.
It was weird, and it just went on and on. Okay, so I've been using this room for 4 years, but 2 years ago, a thing happened with a board op that used to work here, so they didn't let anybody use the rooms for 2 years. Reezy vouched for me, and I'm allowed to use the room. So when I did interviews 2 years ago, I bought my own board, and I would put the phone next to the mic. So for 45 minutes.
That's how you did that interview? That's insane.
I had my phone up to the mic, and if you listen to old interviews from like 2 years ago with different people, I don't think you can hear it in that interview. My face was right next to the mic and the phone, so if I were to breathe loud, I'd be interviewing some big radio guy, and I'm like, and I'm like, oh, damn it.
So, because, going back to talking about the times and how they're just so different,
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, you're able to just make a phone call and from your couch interview, somebody you grew up listening to.
And I think he thinks he called some board where the person loses the number. It's weird. I have his number. I've never talked to him because I don't want to creep him out, but it's just so weird to think that, like, damn, I have his number.
All right, and then the second thing I want to ask you about is also from your website.
Yeah.
And that was that TMZ prank call. So, because I don't ever watch that show. That show makes me angry. Or that part of our human nature makes me angry.
I used to hate it, but now that all I see is Trump, all I talk about is things from that site because it's dumb news that everybody can hate on.
Yeah, that's everything except for Trump.
Yeah.
All right, so how did they were putting people on live? They put people on live?
They don't do it
and
anymore.
then what was the prank supposed to be?
Okay. So they were talking about Kim and everybody over there. And I was trying to say that the whole divorce they were talking about was ruining the show, even though it's an awful show. So I was trying to say that keeping up with them.
With Chris Humphries was bringing down the show.
Yes.
Oh, that was funny.
But they took it as this topic is bringing down your show, and that's why the guy with dreads got so mad at me.
Oh.
He was like, oh, so maybe this next topic will be better for him.
You meant bringing down the Kardashian show.
That's what I meant.
Okay, not the TMZ.
And
yeah, because that's the way I took it, too. I took it that it was bringing down TMZ.
That's the best part is they got so mad. And I had it on
Go Cardinals.
Speaker. Go Cardinals. I had it on a speaker. And I'll never forget, I was live on the radio in my local town when I did that, and I had it on speaker, and they're like, are you on the phone? Are you on the speaker? Like, they almost didn't let me through. Like, they thought it was like a prank, but somehow it got through.
Well done. Great job.
But I think nobody calls that number because they don't do that anymore because that show airs at 2 p.m. They have their live show during the day, and then they have their main show at night. So I think it was very easy for me to get through because I don't think people call at 2 p.m. I think people are working.
More than one. Well, not the people watching that show, obviously. So, hey, you know who you should have on?
Who?
And I if I would have thought about this when you first asked me, and thank you again for having me in here. But this is Nick Van Cleve's last week. Have you ever gotten a chance to know him while you were working here?
I asked him last week, and he said that he would get back to me because he wanted to
Such a diva.
He said he wanted to do Drew's shows first, and there was going to be a Tampa Bay Times article about him.
Yeah.
And then he said that he's too busy right now to do it, but maybe might be able to do it in a few weeks.
All right. When he gets back from his trip. But what a legend. It's his last week. So, by the way, this is you're posting this tonight, right? Tonight? He is a Tampa legend. It's his last week on the radio. He's retiring at the end of the week, and he's been the host at 107.3 The Eagle for the last 15 years. But he's been in Tampa radio for 40 years. Since 1978, he first came to town. It's insane.
I was thinking about that. He put in years.
Yeah.
Man. He's a legend.
And not only that, but he's not everybody gets the chance to retire, go out on top and retire and kind of call, his own shot. And he's able to do that. Usually, a guy will get to about this age and gets fired, and then nobody else picks him up, and he doesn't get a chance to say goodbye or have that, one final lap around the track.
Here's when you know that you're a legit legend. Is when there's not one bad comment about you online. Everybody, when that was put up by the Tampa Bay Times, but I couldn't view the fucking article, they do that dumb thing where they don't let you view the article.
Yep.
From what I was able to read, it was a thing where 100% of people were like, Nick is a class act.
Yep.
The other thing I heard is Nick never needed to be edgy, like he was him, that he was just being him. And
he connects with people en masse. He doesn't have to go and try to push anybody's buttons.
Yeah.
When he talks, he's one of those classic DJs and storytellers, knows the market, knows everybody in the market. And
you'll never hear a bad thing about him. There's so many radio guys where you just hear horrendous things. And Nick's like the opposite. He's like a good dude that you hear good things about.
Yeah. A great mentor, no matter where you are in your career. If you went up and asked, and where he was in his career, you go up and ask him a question, and he would go out of his way for you. So,
were you nervous when you got to sit in and do his show?
Yeah. The first couple days that I sat in and did his show, and so I'm saying this out loud, I did not do one break live. I recorded every break into the same software
Adobe.
You're using right now, and I would do it like right before, like 10 minutes, or maybe 20 minutes beforehand. But I was too nervous to mess up. And also the restrictions there are different from what I'm used to. I'm used to being in an ensemble, and we'd have 3, 8, 10 minutes, depending on, whatever, to talk. And these were all keep it under 1 minute, and you got to be very linear and moving forward, no tangents and stuff like that. So yeah, I was definitely nervous.
Yeah, there's no way. I feel like I could do music radio, but I would need to do this on the side. But I'm such a talker. I just don't know if I could get it in 12 seconds.
But that's the great thing about today, too, and about media or radio personalities today is, like for me, if it weren't these times where we have Facebook Live and I could get up on let me put it this way, because there's been people in the building who have asked me if I could do a format like this for the same reasons you're bringing up. Yes, because I could talk 30 seconds at a time or 1 minute at a time. If this were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, no, because it would drive me insane. But now, these days, if I have something to say, I'll fire up Facebook Live. And whether it's the Facebook of the radio station I'm working at or my own personal one, I can ramble on forever. I could write that material down, tighten it up, and go up to one of the comedy clubs here in town. So there's so many different avenues for me to express myself that it doesn't have to be a morning radio show.
What's the key to having a good talk break? Like, do you write it down and kind of think it out?
For me, it's just knowing where I'm going. So I know where this is going to end up. I'm one of those DJs that I don't even like. For instance, back when I was doing the Morning X with Seth and Danielle.
Yes.
I don't know how to explain it. I just want to know where we're going. We're going to end up in the break and kind of trust the people around you. So then you have to trust Seth. You have to trust Danielle that we're going to be able to have this conversation. We're all going to the same place. But along the way, there's going to be some twists and turns that are hopefully compelling or entertaining or whatever.
So I used to be an overnight board op, but now I just work at the Bone. But I did the hallway where I would board op for Hot and Magic and the Eagle and check the logs. And dude, there are times I'd be in there and I'd be like checking the log and like Money would come on and I would sit down for 5 minutes and not check the log and just jam out. I mean, there's some great songs in there where you're like, hell yeah.
That's one of the cool things about radio is, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? And you could be sweeping floors in a Walmart in the middle of the night. And still, you'd be in the back of the store jamming out to whatever music. But instead, you get to sit in a studio and go, holy crap, this is the epicenter. They're, coming out of these, it's 100,000 watts of power that is, coming out of this building and shooting a signal halfway across the state.
The cool thing, too, I love when I'm in a park.
And you get to hear it 9 seconds before everybody else because of the delay.
I think the Bone might be longer.
Probably the 20-second range.
Isn't it cool when you're in a parking lot and that person has their door open, but they haven't turned off the radio and hear one of the 6 things in the hallway? If it's Hot, Magic, Dove, Eagle, X, or Bone, and you're like, damn, people do listen.
I do like that. I also like playing a game with myself when I'm driving and I'm at a stoplight and I hear a car that has the radio on, trying to find which station they're on before the light turns green.
I've done that. There was a time, I forget what show it was. It was a big show up in the Midwest, but my dad was listening to it in the afternoon. I think it was Doll. And we were at the light, and this was like maybe 20 years ago when he was huge. And every dude had it on. It was crazy. It's crazy how radio back in the day, you could talk for just 45 minutes in a row. And the Bone does it, but you can't do that in any other market.
Well, how do you see it as a 25-year-old? Do you see, a lot of people are out there and they're going, oh, radio's dead, radio's dead. Okay. Where do you see radio? All right, so I've been in radio now 25 years. You've been in radio for what, 3, 2?
I've been paid for 4, but I've been in it 7.
All right, so where do you see radio 20 years from now?
Okay, I know nothing about PPM. I know nothing about the ratings. But to me, if your format is just hanging in the ratings, maybe just for a month, for one ratings period, maybe let the radio DJ talk for 30 seconds, and maybe grow talent on the weekend because every host is getting older and it seems like there's no real talent being signed. Like there's a guy named Tanner who signed in Santa Rosa out on the West Coast. And he's like the first dude my age that I've seen that I know that's getting a morning show. I think radio needs to begin doing a farm setup, like how the Yankees grow talent. And even the Bolts are doing that now. When I talked to Third Leg Greg, he says all the players that are about to come up are going to be huge. Radio, it's time for that to happen. It's not.
Well, one of the things that happened to radio when automation really kicked in and the telecommunications bill passed, the year you were born, back in 1996. And so companies were able to come in, buy up a lot of radio stations, and then instead of having one, like when he was talking about a board op earlier, instead of having one board op for each one of these 5, 6 radio stations, you only had one that watches them all. So people were getting fired left and right because of automation. They weren't having live jocks on in the middle of the night because we'll have some kid trying to cut his teeth or save that money and put it to the bottom line.
Here's the thing.
So now fast forward 25 years, and he's right. There has been no farming, no system out there of grooming the next generation of talent. But they don't even need to because they're going to be social media talent stars. So
that's the thing. That's why I'm proud about the show, and I know this show and shows that are done by people at the Bone, like John Senning and Anna, anybody, we can really make it because we're radio people doing a show online. Because most of the shows you listen to, like I'm not a big fan of how Joe Rogan does the show where he just shoots the shit. I like a show that's got kind of a setup, and I feel like the shows that do the old type of radio are going to be the ones within the next 5 years that come off differently.
I can see that happening as well. I've had those conversations with people as well that it seems like the first generation of success where your Joe Rogans and Adam Carollas and those people were getting by on their talent alone and their celebrity, their combined talent, celebrity, not necessarily a format or do it this way or that way. But then the second generation was the NPR all the cereals and all that kind of stuff. And so I think you're right. I think the next generation is going to come in, and that's going to be radio guys. Think about how many radio men and women over the last 15 years have lost their jobs to Clear Channel, to Cox, CBS, and so on. So they're going to find their niche, and you're right. I think you're going to see a whole new genre come into podcasting.
I look up to Adam. I met him 5 years ago, and I don't think he liked me, but I didn't care because I got to meet him. It was I was at this place where you could buy booze. It was in this weird neighborhood. You know how he has that type of wine that he sells? Adam does?
No.
Adam sells this wine. I forget what it's called. So I was like 19 or 20 at the time. So I wasn't old enough to be there. So the point of the whole waiting in line was you buy his wine and then take a pic, and then they'll post it on their website afterwards. So I snuck to the front of the line in a way, and I was like, Adam, I'm 20. I'm not old enough to be here, but I would love to take a picture. He goes, where's my drink? And I go, I'm too young to get the drink. I'm not old enough, but I would love to get a picture. And he goes, fine. He was so annoyed with me, and I'll show you the picture afterwards. He has this look like, fuck this kid. But dude, when you listen,
still a great story.
When you listen to Adam, man, you can hear the guy that worked so hard in the 90s to get where he's at, because he did Loveline, and then he did his own show. So that's why I look up to him, is because he was a radio guy that lost his job 10 years ago, and he didn't sit on his ass. He literally was like, and I know he has the huge name, but he literally earned everything he got.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see a lot, guys that don't necessarily have as big a names as Adam Carolla, but still carve out a niche for themselves.
It's weird. So I used to do my show via video, and I was like, do I want to do that? Because, like, Carmen can do that because she's good looking and she's Carmen. But I'm like, do people want to see Ryan Hoppe? So I got rid of any video of me online. Everything's on private. And all of a sudden, my listens are through the roof because I never post any more selfies. And I'm trying to be humble and not show my face as much. And I know people want to make it overnight, and they want to do videos, and they want people to notice. But there is a thing about just grinding and hiding your face and just letting things happen over time.
Well, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
And I know it seems like duh. Of course it is. But I mean the way that your brain is interacting with the content. When there's video, your brain is interacting with it very differently than when it's audio. Audio, your imagination, there's parts of your brain that start to light up because it needs to fill in the blanks. That's when your imagination kicks in. And it's a completely different relationship. So audio is very powerful. And even though in the marketing world, they'll be telling you these days, oh, you got to be pushing video. If you do audio the right way, if you're telling the right stories, and I don't mean stories as in nonfiction, but other people's stories, your brand is attaching itself to the community somehow and sharing those stories of the community. They can be very compelling. If you're the right host and the right storytellers, they can be very compelling. And then, like I said, it's a conversation. Your brain. Okay, let's go back to radio. All right. When you're sitting in the car by yourself and you've got the radio on, your brain, it's actually a little trick.
Yeah.
Your brain is having a conversation with what's coming out of the radio. You're just not usually talking out loud. Every now and again, you might throw an FU back at the radio, or you laugh out loud. But and then within that, you start to form a relationship with that voice that's coming out of the speakers. And over time, your brain doesn't know, and it's a real relationship. So then when you finally go and meet that guy you listened to on the radio all those years, you're like, holy crap, I already know. You feel like you can just go up and give him a hug. You shouldn't, because he doesn't know who you are, but you feel like you could.
Man,
I'm sorry for rambling, man. I don't know if anybody warned you about me.
It's all good. If you listen to Drew, I think he is the definition of what you just said. Like, I feel like every single person that listens to Drew loves or hates him, and I feel like you're talking back to him in your head.
Oh yeah, he's great at engaging the person on the other side of the speaker and compelling you're right, their neurons, their brains to fire off in a certain way.
I'm going to notice that now. You pointed that out. I'm never going to not see that now. I'm going to see it in my brain when I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah, because you'll notice you're having a conversation. You're talking back, but like I said, usually not out loud in your car because you're not crazy. But every now and again, a radio DJ can get you the right way, or somebody, radio personality can do it the right way, where you do say something out loud. Usually it's shut the fuck up or something like that. But
if I hear a fake bit, it immediately makes me not want to listen. For you, is there anything you hear, if you hear a show that's made online or a show that's on the radio, what's one thing a show could do that you go, I just can't listen?
Your fake bits, like you were just saying, and what would you like to explain a particular fake bit you're talking about?
I'd rather not.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
I'd rather not say it, but
okay.
I mean.
So there are bits that are designed to seem real, like they get people on the phone and whatever, but those are paid actors. I don't like those. I also am not the biggest fan of features like, where if I tune in there every day and they're doing the same thing every day, it's the same trivia thing every day or whatever. Unless it depends. Like, for instance, two guys that are very talented, Roger and JP on the Bone.
Yes.
I love listening to those guys just talk, just BS. Those two and Monica, and tell stories and give their opinions on whatever's happening during the day, because they don't get too serious and too political and stuff like that. But like 3 days a week they do, Dead Guy in an Envelope or something like that.
Dude, it's insane. I used to do phones for them whenever JR was out. It's crazy how many people call in during that.
Well,
it's
listen,
insane.
and by the way, and Hoppe will tell you too that what I'm saying right now is counter to the way you program, and I'll bring that up in a second. But you asked me personally, like, what makes me turn the radio?
Yeah.
When I tune in and I hear them having to do a bit instead of being themselves and just talking and whatever, when they're having to do Dead Guy in an Envelope or whatever the other one is, top 10 list.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, God damn it, I don't care. This is just, it's waste time, Now, that being said, there's a reason for that, because to the average listener, the person that's not in radio, those are actually really good for ratings. It's things that people know are happening at the same time every day or the same time every other day. And so actually they are really good for ratings. So I understand why they do it. But you asked me personally things that make me turn the radio station. That, and then I'll also say one other one, because I give Drew all the love in the world. That I love that show. I listen all the time. But when he starts being a dick, when he starts getting back, like when he'll kick into that what was that, in your face mode?
Yeah.
I can't listen, man. It just, my anxiety kicks in. I'm like, man, I feel like it's a waste. We could be doing something, but I get it too, because it's good for ratings. And that's him jerking the car wheel a little bit to the left, jerking the car wheel a little bit to the right. And I don't mean that politically. I just mean constantly keeping people on their toes. You never know what you're getting. He goes between giving, apple a day and giving his time to the community to being an a-hole in your face. And that's his lane. He does it well. But like you said, you asked me personally what makes me punch out, and those things are.
So I like watching sports because I grew up in the Midwest and it's big up there. But I like the national sports shows, basically just Jim Rome, because he's good at what he does. He's very much like Drew, where you talk back to him. But, dude, there's nothing worse. Every single city has it. This city has it with sports talk show hosts that are also friends with the teams, and they never say what they feel because they don't want to piss off the team. And
right.
There's nothing worse. Chicago, every single host is like that because they get all the info about the Cubs and the Bulls. There's nothing worse than when you listen to a sports show and you can tell they're holding back on how they feel about the front office.
Well, that's another great thing about having so many podcasts and other things out there, because those people like you, can be authentic. They're not tied into the corporate world. They're not tied into the team, so they don't have to watch their P's and Q's. You can just you call it as you see it, so you can be authentic. And I also believe that is, if you're looking to do a podcast, that's something to keep in mind, is and I know it sounds so cliche and so.
Be yourself.
Be yourself. And you're like,
keep
I don't even know what that
everybody
means. But it really, but you have to. Now, you brought up something a couple of times, Hoppe has, about trying to be more humble. Because there's a balance in doing this where you have to have a certain amount of respect and humility, but at the same time, you need to have a humongous confidence that whatever it is that's coming out of your mouth, other people want to hear.
The weird
So what do you
thing-
mean by that? What do you mean? Who had a conversation with you and said, "Hey, buddy, you need to back it off a little bit"?
I used to take a lot of selfies and just show my face all the time. And when I got dumped, and I'm not talking about my old ex, I'm not going to the past, but when I got dumped back in June, that was the most humbling thing where I was like, maybe I need to work on things because I have a really big ego. I don't have any siblings, so it was all about me growing up. And I was on a show in Cleveland, Rover show 4 years ago, and then I moved here. And when I was in Cleveland, everybody recognized me. It was very annoying. It was like a cool thing, but then at a point they would be like, "Oh, I saw Hoppe at Target." So you felt like you didn't have a private life because you're in Cleveland. It's a small town. So when I came here to town, I thought I was the shit. I was coming from the biggest show in Cleveland, even though I got kicked off for getting blackout drunk at an event because I was 21 years old, and they didn't want to have me on the show anymore because they've all gone to jail. But me getting drunk was a big deal, I guess. But what I'm saying is I came to town, just going to throw them under the bus, because they do it all the time. My thing is, so I came to town, and I thought I was the shit. And Galvin, Drew, Calta, and Maiko
put you in your place real quick.
They were like, "Who the hell is this goofy 21-year-old?" And they doing the punch outs and losing the punch outs and getting dumped and having Calta bash me on air. I used to get tweets, and I get tweets whenever he talks about me. And I would like clench my fists and punch my bed, and I'd be like, "They're talking bad about me." But then when you look at it 2 years later, you're like, but they almost were looking out for me in a way where they're like, "Why are you dating this girl?" Because basically the 2 times I've dated girls, it's changed me where they're like, "You can't be dirty on the radio." And they say bad things about my coworkers. So I think it was kind of like being by a drug addict where they were basically like, if you ever get single and want to do radio again, that's cool, but we're not going to talk to you. And that's basically what happened. And that's kind of what humbled me was when I got dumped by my ex back in June, Calta hated me, Drew hated me, and I was single. And having to lose all the weight because I was like 300 pounds, basically having to begin over the last 9 months and having to do second and third jobs, everything is just humbled me so much. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does, and a lot of us need that, or actually not need it, but we get it a few times throughout our career. Every time you get fired, or you go to a new place and they're treating you like the odd guy out, but it also needs it because I think those that have what it takes to be behind a microphone, it's almost like a chunk of marble. Like a sculptor gets a chunk of marble, and then each one of those ego dings, whether it's a breakup or something, what Calta and those guys were doing to you, it kind of takes those chunks out of the marble. But then when all those chunks are gone, what's left behind is a beautiful statue, a beautiful Ryan Hoppe statue. And so it helps mold your ego and point it in the right direction.
And you almost get motivated by the pain because you're just the pain gives you so much energy that you're like, you're so pissed off and you're sad and depressed, but it makes you want to go swim or makes you want to go to the gym or makes you want to go out and about. Like, you're pissed off inside and you're a little grumpy, a little moody. You're like a girl at her time of the month. Like, you're just pissy, but you're like, I want to go out and about because I'm single. Don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, everything you say makes sense.
I feel like I'm just going through my young age because I feel like within 10 years I'll look back at all this and be like, you were dating a crazy girl, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like I'll look back on it and just be like, man, what was I nervous about? What was I overthinking?
But going back, you're dating a crazy girl or whatever, I think you'll look back in 10 years or 20 years and go, oh, because I had a certain crazy in me that I needed to iron out, and that relationship helped me iron that out.
True.
Yeah, and see a part of me that I don't like, because even in those relationships, there are things I'm sure that you like. There was good that she brought out of you, and then there's also things that she probably highlighted in you that you needed to get rid of.
What I've learned is to trust your gut, to pull the plug when you start to get bad inklings. And that's not even about my ex. I've cut out maybe 2 people that I was friends with for the last 2 years. And when I heard things they said about me or just not picking up the phone or talking shit, I was like, you know what? And I blocked them on social media. And these are dudes that I thought were friends. And that was kind of humbling too, where that's what I learned from my breakup was like, if you feel like they're toxic and you need to pull the plug, you probably should.
So you also give relationship advice and psychological advice on your podcast.
I have so much fun pretending.
Are you qualified?
That's what's so much fun about doing it is I'm just giving what I think, and I know I'm wrong, and I know in 10 years I'm going to listen to my show and go, man, what was I talking about? And I know in 20 years I'll listen to my show from 10 years from now and my show now and cringe. And then when I'm 50, and I know just when you get older and older, you think about things differently.
There will come a time where you see it. You're right, but there will come a time where you see it differently, and you'll see the growth and go, "Holy crap, that was a really cool." I got to live my life during a time where I talked on the radio or put out a podcast a few times a week for the last 30 years or 40 years.
I love acting like I know things on my show. It's so funny.
It's a great thing about radio. But that's also, times are changing. I used to be that too. As long as you say stuff confidently and move forward, people are like, oh, I mean, he's on the radio. He must know what he's talking about. But now they just Google that shit real quick and call you and go, hey, man, that thing you just said, way wrong.
The funny part is girls that I match with on these dating apps, they'll look up my show. And there's been girls that have unmatched with me, and probably 2 girls in the last week that once they heard my show, they didn't talk to me anymore. But that's why I'm being so honest just with my internet presence and the way I carry myself. It's because I know I'm goofy, but I use it as a tool, and I'm not going to act like some person for anybody, for a girl or guy.
Because that's a good thing about this is them tracking you down, and then a couple of them just keep moving on. Awesome. You know, you're not wasting their time. You're wasting your time. And so they get to come in, dip in, listen to you for a little bit, go, oh, this guy's intriguing. I'm going to stick around.
They think I have this like Elvis radio voice or Howard or whatever. And then when they hear my Midwest accent with a slight speech impediment, they'll be like, man, you have the weirdest voice I've ever heard.
I see. So you lure, they're thinking they're getting ready to tune in and hear Roger from the Roger and Jake, right?
Every time. And then the best part is they'll message me and they're like, I bet you have a sexy, deep voice. And I'm like, that's when I know I have no shot. I'm like, like they think they're hearing Roger and they hear my Midwest accent.
Yeah.
And then there are some girls that like it, but a lot of times they'll be like, what music do you play or what do you talk about? And that's when I know it's over. If they listen to shows, basically what I notice about people in radio is you have to find a girl that can laugh at things. If she gets offended by things easily, and if you're really passionate about what you do in radio, it's not going to work. Because at some point, she's going to get offended.
Right, unless you move into the non-offensive formats, and then you're fine.
Yeah, that's true.
You just go into AC, adult contemporary, and then you'll never say anything offensive.
So, where can people hear you?
Well, these days, I just got rehired here at Cox Media Group as a fill-in for the Eagle and the Dove, 105.5 the Dove, continuous light favorites, and 107.3 the Eagle, Tampa Bay's classic hits. So that's where you can catch me. I'm not doing any particular. I was doing a live simul stream on Facebook Live, Google Live, Twitter, Periscope.
I watched it. It was good.
Thanks, man. It was an experiment, trying to learn new technology and learned a lot of stuff thanks to Cords Owen and Bake More Pies, Johnny Torres. I couldn't have done it without him. And we did 163 episodes or something like that.
Wake Up Show, right?
Yeah, the Wake Dot Show. The Wake Dot Show. Welcome to the Wake Dot Show. How many episodes are you in now?
700.
Holy crap! Good for you, man.
I think 700.
Holy crap! Do you number every one of them?
No.
So is that episode number or whatever? No.
I think that's the dumbest thing.
Well, that was kind of the standard out of the box. Was
that is true. Joe Rogan
makes it
that.
easy. Makes it easy. Go back to episode 109.
That's true. I didn't really format my show back in the day.
No kidding.
What are you talking about? Jesus did.
You mean there's a format to this?
Just us shooting the shit.
That's a good format. I like it.
because I don't want to come in with bits and be like, let's do 80s trivia, Fisher.
Well,
now it's time to do. I just wanted to shoot the shit.
You said earlier, though, you liked listening to the podcasts or internet shows that had more of a format to it.
When you're doing the news and like how they have Galvin's News, and then they have Redneck Bingo, where they play songs and they guess different words. I guess I like shows like Bennington, Howard, where they have sound effects and they kind of shoot the shit and joke. I liked Opie and Anthony back in the day. Basically, what I'm not into is the Joe Rogan format, because he began this format where you just smoke weed and then you talk for 3 hours about what comes to your mind. And then guys like Mike Tyson do that now, and Joey Diaz. And that's what I don't like, is when the mic's on and they do a live read for 9 minutes of all their sponsors. I need some bit of like prep. That's all I need.
Okay.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean shows that are like wacky morning zoos with the sound effects. No, I just meant kind of know what you're doing.
All right. Have a direction. Just know where you're going. All right.
Man, I heard one show. I don't know. It was a kid that I grew up with, and he was trying to do it. And I felt bad because, like, by no means, no radio person's perfect, but I listened to it, and I was like, he has no idea what he's doing. Like, I just feel like you're either born with the radio gene or not.
There's a certain amount of charisma and storytelling when it comes to connecting with people. And just like anything else, there are people, everybody can run. There's some people that can run faster than others. I think everybody can connect with another human being, and some people are just better at connecting with human beings in mass.
This is the most random thing possible for me to ask.
Purple.
But were there ever any days or weeks where you would just overthink things? Maybe it was from working in radio, but like one week you feel anxious, and then the next week you feel alive. Do you go through that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely have gone through that. Overthinking. The more you get, I realized looking back, I didn't know it in the time because you're just kind of scrambling to get back on your feet or get back to, whatever. And so being fired 5 times in radio, each one of those kind of come with their own little traumatic moment. I don't want to say PTSD. I don't want to throw that term around, use it loosely, but it definitely has an impact. So after every firing, you're back in your next gig. It doesn't feel the same because now there's this like monster in the background, this fear that constantly drives you at any point. Because I've been fired with the number 3 ratings in the market, number 2 ratings, and number 1. So you just never know. So there's nothing you can hang your hat on. And so with that, bits that you would not overthink at all early on, as soon as they popped in your head and you're like, it made you laugh, you're like, let's do it. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, let's think about it from this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle. How can it get into some trouble? And
so when people want to do a show like me and do it on the internet, hoping to get on the radio, how clean and how radio ready should they be? So what I'm saying is, should you try to keep it humble? Because do you think PDs would listen to a show and be like, oh, I can't put him on the air because of what he said?
All right. So are you saying if somebody's trying to make a demo to get into radio, or somebody's just wanting to do their own podcast, or?
So like for me and other people that do shows, we want to get this on the bone, or we want to get this on sports radio. Do you think if you were to say like a swear, or if you were to do an edgy bit, do you think that prevents you? Like, do you think you should do what you hear on the radio, or just go with what you want to do?
It really depends. If you feel like you have something to say, stay authentic to you, okay? Just keep being you, and then go out and try to find those places that see in you exactly what you see in you and put you on the air or put you on their podcast network or whatever. If you're somebody who you feel like you have a certain amount of thespian talent and voiceover talent and this and this and this, and you're trying to figure out the best way to get on the radio, then you're going to have to kind of listen to radio, learn what the industry wants, and give them what they want.
It's true.
You know what I mean? There is kind of 2 different ways to get into it. And if you're also that person, I recommend getting in through promotions or internships, and that way you can be in a building with 5, 6, 7 radio stations and learn from a lot of different people and kind of figure out who you are and how you want to connect with your audience.
I'll have people ask me if they want to go to a radio trade class, if they should. Now, I needed it because I lived in the third biggest market, so you needed the credits to get any sort of foot in the door. But I don't think you need to go to the trade class. Basically, just buy Adobe Audition for $20 a month and learn that and watch videos of how to set up a show and just try to get a promotions job or anything.
Don't let perfectionism get in your way. It's very easy because in your mind you're like, if I only had this microphone and if I had this software and if I could afford this and if I had a studio. No, you know what? There's no excuses. If you have something to say, hit record on your phone. You have a voice, hit record on your phone and find the cheapest way to upload it, which I think is like $20 a month or something like that for somebody to host up your podcast, your content.
And the thing
and push it to iTunes.
Too is make sure it sounds good enough, but there are shows that have the best sound and they suck.
Right.
And there are shows that
have very inadequate microphones, but the content's great.
And as long as it's listenable, you're good.
Yes. Right. If it's the quality's too much and it's over distorted or the mics are so bad that you can hear
oh, it's the worst. Dude, I've heard comedians that are worth so much money with shitty mics, and I'm like, or former radio guys, and I'm like, you got so much money in your bank account. Fucking just put in the 1,000 and just get a decent setup. It's infuriating. I'm like, come on.
So what's your ultimate goal then? Your ultimate goal is to find sponsors and more sponsors for your podcast?
More sponsors. I think the thing is to get my show on the bone and just show them what I'm about. But I would be lying if I said I don't look at radio jobs. And there's just really nothing out there because companies are getting bought out. But Seth said it best to me when we were sending texts back and forth last week. He goes, you don't need to be the quarterback. He goes, the other players on the team are just as big as the quarterback. Like, the quarterback needs the wide receiver. He needs the running back. He needs the line to make sure he doesn't get sacked. And to me, I thought that just shows how much of a pro Seth is, that the fact that he said, he basically was saying, I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I know that I'm really good at what I do and that I'm huge for Drew.
It is true, but, you kind of are who you are, and you do seem like you got that a healthy ego where, you want to drive the show. Where you want to drive the show and what, but I mean, I could be wrong.
I think my next thing is getting a show on air or getting a producer position where I'm a part of a show and I'll just keep doing this.
Has there been talks, because you've been here for a few years now, of like, because they've shuffled around so much, Johnny B and Cat Named Mo and stuff like that. Have they ever teamed you up with any of those guys?
I'm a part of all the shows on the weekend. I board up all weekend, so I help out with Miggs and Swig, Flats Mafia. So that's how I have never felt better about what I'm doing. And that's a part of my overthinking is like the next thing to do in radio. But I feel like if you just let life play out, like, okay, if it's going on 2023 and I'm where I'm at, right, and I'm 30, then I'll be a little fucking nervous. But I try to relax and be like, I'm rebuilding my brand. I'm 25. I've been humbled. That's basically, it's March 25th, 2019. If I'm doing the same thing and you're listening to this in 2024, then I'm nervous. Yeah. So if you're listening in 2024 and Fisher's got a new morning show and he's crushing it and I'm on air, that's a good thing. But if we're listening in 2024 and nothing's changed, then I'll be nervous.
That's a great way to look at it, very mature way to look at it at 25 years old, because you are in a great position to learn from a lot of people who bring a lot to the table. And I would just keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep moving forward. And
thank you.
One of those days, like you said, the universe is going to go, boop, all right, you've learned all you need to learn right here. Open you up to your next adventure, and off you go.
And I don't think I was ready for that when I first came here, because I was 21. I mean, I know I'm young. I know I'm 25. But I was just so douchey and so immature. Like, I would board up and take a selfie. And it's because I wanted people to know that I was working 12 to 6. And sort of in a way, it kept me in the limelight and it made me sort of known. But at the same time, if I could tell my 21-year-old self to just play it cool and not take selfies. That's the overthinking I do. Is I'm like, would I be farther along? But then I go, do you have to have the growing pains? And do you have to have the dumb choices? Like, nobody's perfect.
Right.
Like, Tom Brady's lost Super Bowls. I mean, he's not perfect.
Right.
And
that, again, at 25 years old, to have that kind of awareness is of positive attribute.
You are the 5 people you hang out with.
So me, myself, my Yorkies, and my wife. But the thing is that you're able at 25. It didn't take you till 35 or 45 to look back and go, you know what? I don't like that part of me. I don't need to do this or whatever. The Instagramming because I also look at it and go, I haven't Instagrammed enough. I haven't taken enough selfies over the last 5 years, according to the people, the 5 people I hang out with.
Unless you're Carmen, nobody wants to see it. Like when you look at her pics, it gets like 1,000 likes. But when you look at even like a big radio name, like let's say Opie or just a guy who's huge in radio, it'll get 500. Like it doesn't matter. You're just not going to get as many likes because it's just not a thing to do. I just don't think.
I do have nice cleavage when I shave.
Let's end on that note.
Perfect. Hey, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Dude.
And I can't wait to hear the episode with Nick Van Cleef.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.